A few years back, I went on a Norwegian cruise with some friends. It started off as a nice little vacation, but by the third day at sea, things began to feel strange. After 2 days of nothing but sushi, I started feeling dizzy and lightheaded. My friends told me to lay off the sushi, suspecting it was causing the symptoms. After a few drinks, I left my friends, who were at one of the ship's bars, and started making my way back to my room, not feeling well at all. I ended up taking a strange route through a lower deck to get there, since some bars were on the lowest public levels of the ship. In the hallway, I asked one of the maids for the quickest way to my room. She had a thick accent, but I understood her to say, "Keep going straight, then make a left at the sign." I did just that. I came to a sign that I don't remember what it said, but it was a sign, so I turned left there. I found myself in a narrow hallway with a tiled floor instead of carpet, and it felt like I was in an employees-only area. Still, I decided to keep going a bit farther before turning back. I reached a corner and looked to my right, and what I saw there was the creepiest hallway imaginable. Half the lights were out, and one was flickering on and off. At the end of this tiny hallway, someone stood facing the wall. My headache grew even worse as I stared, and I rubbed my eyes to make sure I wasn't seeing things. But when I removed my hands, the figure that had been facing the wall was now looking directly at me. They stood in a darker part of the hallway, out of the light, so I couldn't make out any details of their face, only that they were looking straight at me. I turned and hurried back the way I'd come. The maid was gone, but with my head still pounding, I managed to make it back to the main lobby on my floor, and finding the elevators from there was easy. Once I was back in my room, I crashed into bed, certain I'd come down with food poisoning from all the sushi, as my stomach was also hurting along with my head. Later that night, at some odd hour, I woke up and couldn't move. The only thing I could move were my eyes. I tried looking around, but my inability to move my head or sit up made seeing most of the room nearly impossible. Something appeared in my peripheral vision. Turning my eyes in the other direction, I saw a figure. Someone facing the wall. As I looked at it, I felt an overwhelming urge to scream or run, but I couldn't do anything. It was real as anything I'd ever seen. Slowly, the head of the figure turned to face me, and all I could make out was blackness. Its face, its body. Everything about it was just black. Then it started moving closer, but without moving its limbs. It just seemed to float, slowly, in my direction. The figure stopped right over my bed, and I could now see a face, one I recognized as the same person I'd seen in the hallway earlier that night. I don't remember how long it stood there, but suddenly its mouth opened far wider than humanly possible, and from it came a deafening scream. The scream seemed so real, so loud that it jolted me fully awake, snapping me out of the sleep paralysis. The strangest thing I remember was that this scream from the figure seemed to blend with my own scream. I finally managed to flick on the light, and my friend who was in the other bed woke up asking what was wrong. I told him about the terrifying experience I'd just had, and he said again that I'd probably eaten too much raw fish, and it was messing with my mind. My whole body was shaking, and my voice trembled as I spoke. Eventually, I went back to sleep and, thankfully, didn't have any more dreams that night. But I still wonder if that person I saw in the hallway was real. I'm 90% sure it was that hallucination that showed up in my sleep paralysis. Yet that vision was the most real and horrifying thing I'd ever seen.